Tonight, we discuss the extreme views on abortion and transgenderism that the news media pretends don't actually exist, or if they exist, they're not a problem, but they are. Instead, they want you to believe that Trump is a Nazi and a racist and he will come and arrest you. We are close to the election, so that means that the rhetoric is getting more and more extreme about the dangers of a Donald Trump presidency. But do we have something to fear should that be the case? This is your favorite night of the week, The Deep End on Tim Hatch Live. Okay, welcome in everybody to The Deep End. My name is Tim, and I'm so glad that you are here on YouTube. If you hit the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell, that would help out the channel. I'm glad to bring this content to you so close to the election because we look at the news of the day through the lens of a Christian worldview from a pastor's perspective. That is The Deep End, Season 7, Episode 43. And then after next week's edition of The Deep End, there will be no more seasons. So it'll just be The Deep End, okay? I think that was, time to change that. So it is changed, and happy Halloween to those of you who celebrate. Remember, it is named Halloween because the Christians, the Catholic Church, under Pope Gregory III, renamed it from a celebration of the dead to the celebration of those who are dead in Christ. It is All Hallows Eve, All Sacred Saints Eve, for All Souls Day on November 1st. And one person who tried to make a second round at life is sitting next to me here. This is Frankenstein. But how do you know that Frankenstein is liberal? How do you know that this Frankenstein is liberal? Do you know why? Because he's so open-minded, his brain falls out. All right, well, say hello to liberal Frankenstein here sitting next to me, and I hope that doesn't offend you. It is time to get into the content of the day here on The Deep End. And remember, this content is for educational purposes only. And so with that in mind, let's get started. Do you know that your worldview matters? Your worldview matters. And when it comes to the worldview about pro-abortion, killing babies in their mother's womb, you are expressing a very depressing worldview. It's a worldview that devalues human life. Humans are made in the image of God. And I don't know if you've ever seen the videos. They're circulating the internet. They talk about when, at the moment of conception, when the sperm, what would you call it? Hits the egg, comes into the egg, whatever you want to say. When the sperm gets into the egg, there is a bright light that flashes around the egg. At the moment of conception, there's a release of zinc, there's a release of light. And there is no denying the fact that something supernatural is involved there. The supernatural, of course, is God creating another human being. When you believe that that human being is less valuable than any other life, well, you've embraced a very depressing worldview because humans matter. They matter to God, they matter to Christians, of course. They should matter to all Christians, all people. The pro-abortion worldview is a worldview that devalues you because, after all, before you were born, I guess we could have killed you. It's a worldview that makes a mockery of having babies, that actually looks down or disdains those who would have children. It's also a worldview that puts career above having children, particularly for women. Nothing is more potential packed, ladies, than you giving birth. You understand that? Because when you give birth to a child, that child could change the world. That child could be the next Elon Musk who wants to put a rocket on Mars. That child could be the next Jeff Bezos who makes shopping more enjoyable and easier for you at home. That child could solve a health problem that we are struggling with, like cancer or, I don't know, name it. But when we kill children, when we deny them birth, we remove all the potential from that child before it even has a chance to breathe. And yes, some people can't have children, but all people, whether they can have children or not naturally, can help raise children, love children, adopt children, foster children, nurture children, teach children the value of their lives. Which brings me to Deep End News about Michelle Obama's recent speech for Kamala Harris.
Deep End News. The news you choose if you could choose news.
Okay, so I'm a little bit disturbed by this news item from the Christian Post. The title is Michelle Obama hits back at abortion bans. Quote, women are more than, quote, baby-making vessels, end quote. That was her words while she was on the stump campaigning for the most pro-abortion candidate in our country's history, Kamala Harris. And here's the video for you to see it for yourself. Watch.
We have to use choices, to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment. And we are more than just baby-making vessels.
Okay, I have a problem with that. Because the sentiment that she's expressing here is that a woman who gives birth is not living up to her fullest potential. That is the implied sentiment. We are more than just baby-making vessels. Could there be anything more important than producing a baby? And again, I know there are women who can't have children naturally, and my heart goes out to you, and my prayers are for you. But you can adopt, you can raise, you can foster, you can mother a child. You can take children from less than enviable or desirable environments and raise them in empowering environments. Ladies, there's nothing more potential packed in this world than producing and raising another human being. Again, nothing could change the world more. But that is the sentiment, it seems, on the left. That having children is less important than clerking for a Supreme Court justice. That having children is less important than leading a Fortune 500 company as a CEO. That having children is less important than, inventing something or establishing a business. No, friend, nothing is more important than having children. The first commandment that God gives to humans in the Bible is be fruitful and multiply. And then when God wipes out the earth because they are sinful beyond repair, he says to Noah, be fruitful and multiply. Make babies. Have children. You bear my image. Reproduce. Rule and subdue. And when you bring a child into the world, you bring more of God's image into the world. Don't you ever think about it like that? That should be the first thing we celebrate when a baby is born. The child is bearing the image of God. More image of God in creation. But that is not the political mindset of the left. No. Children are inconvenienced. They're getting in the way of your clerkship. They're getting in the way of your CEO position. They're getting in the way of you becoming who you should be and self-actualizing to the nth degree of your imagination. That is the political view of the left. Meanwhile, we see news out of Europe that they need more babies. This is all over Europe. From Britain to England to Finland, the government is now incentivizing people with money to have babies. Why? Because birth rates in England and Europe are at historic lows. And if you cannot reproduce, your society crumbles. You have to have children that you raise in your worldview and in your value system to maintain your world and your values, right? Cut them off before they're born or refuse to have any whatsoever in the name of, peace or, mental health or whatever you want to say. And you are going to slowly abdicate your right to exist as a culture. This is why God said to both Adam and Noah, be fruitful and multiply. Now, what we see on college campuses is the political divide is getting wider and wider along the gender lines. Men are breaking hard right, women are breaking hard left. And the reason why young women, are breaking hard left is for one singular reason. It turns out that college girls love abortion, and seemingly only abortion. There's a guy who runs a YouTube channel and an X page, and I forget who it is. You'll see him on this video, though. And he took to college campuses to interview young ladies about why they are supporting Kamala Harris, and there's really only one reason. Watch.
Honestly, everything about her.
You just love her.
I don't need to love any president necessarily, but I support her.
You're with Kamala, though.
I am.
All right. Do you plan on voting in the presidential election?
Yeah. I already voted.
You already voted? Who did you vote for?
Kamala.
Why do you like Kamala?
I just think she has a good plan for our country.
What do you like best about her plan for America?
Well, reproductive rights for women, for starters.
Do you know who you're voting for?
No.
You don't know who you're going to vote for yet. What are the issues that might change your mind? Like economy. Some people talk about economy, they talk about the border. Some people talk about abortion. You think abortion will be your number one issue? Who are you guys going to be voting for?
Harris.
Or both of you?
Yes.
And why do you like Harris?
I just like what she stands for. I like her as a person. She has personality. She's nice, and she believes that the majority of people should have rights, which is nice.
Are there rights that people are being denied that she's going to give them?
It's treatment, it's involvement in the military, trans people. Trump took them out of the military.
Where's this going to be posted?
On my channel. I host a political talk show.
I'll probably be voting for Kamala.
Kamala? And what do you like about Kamala?
I just feel like she's overall a lot more respectful of different groups within America. And I'm on a Zoom for my class right now, so I'm a little distracted.
Okay. Who do you plan on voting for?
Kamala Harris.
What about you?
Sure.
Not sure, still undecided?
Still decided.
And why do you like Kamala?
My family's just Democratic, and I'm from the North, so.
Okay. So you're just doing what your family has done for years?
Like, kinda, but also, like, personal views.
What views of Kamala's do you like?
Probably, like, abortion policy views.
Abortion? Any other issues that are key for you?
Not really.
Just abortion is the main issue?
Yeah.
Who are you going to be voting for?
Kamala.
Why do you like Kamala?
Kamala.
Kamala, I'm sorry. Get it right.
We like her stances and views.
Like, which ones do you like the most?
Abortion, the stances just on welfare in general. I don't think that Trump is really looking out for that as much.
Abortion, welfare. Okay, whatever. So that's the college kids. Those are the college girls or the young boys who date them that say, my most important issue is being able to kill children. Just listen to the next generation. These are the future leaders of America. And meanwhile, at the Kamala Harris rallies, guess who shows up? Doctors who kill children. Seems they really support Harris. So abortionists showed up at the Kamala rally to great applause and stood in unity on stage to voice their support for the Democratic nominee. And this is how that went down, by the way. Lots of celebration as the people who would put children to death in the womb arrive on stage to voice their support for Kamala. Come on, everybody who wants to kill kids. Let's vote for Kamala. That is the mindset here. So that took place. And then the doctor started a speech, one of the OBGYN, or should I say baby killers, got up on stage at a rally where Beyonce was supposed to show up. She showed up for 4 minutes. But the doctors took to the stage. And see if you can't notice what is missing from this moment, that the doctors are having this great, grandiose support Kamala moment. Watch this. Watch what goes down here.
Necessarily becoming ill and dying. Nationwide, I think someone needs some medical assistance over here.
Would be nice to have a doctor in the house. Seeing as there's like 20 of them on stage. Would be nice. Should I do something? I don't know. Oh, there's somebody who supports baby killing doing something. Look at the lady with the long hair. She's just like circling. Like, I don't know what to do. They only taught me how to rip children from the womb. It's just hysterical. By the way, this is another angle of that moment from the stands. Watch. So that was what was going on at the Kamala Harris rally. Like, this is the pro-abortion group. All we know how to do is talk about taking your children's life before they are born. Oh, a medical emergency happens at the Kamala Harris rally, and the doctors on the stage stand there mystified about what should I do in this moment. That is called having your brain so open-minded, it falls out. Thank you once again, Dr. Frankenstein. And we have to talk about Kamala's extreme abortion policy because it's going to affect Christians, particularly those in the medical field. So there's news out of NBC from an interview on Tuesday where Harris was asked if she would consider making concessions on abortion if she were to win the White House in order to garner support from the pro-abortion Republicans. And this moment goes down, this question can you make some exceptions for those of a religious persuasion? Watch.
What concessions would be on the table? Religious exemptions, for example? Is that something that you would consider?
I don't think we should be making concessions when we're talking about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body.
To Republicans like, for example, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, who would back something like this on a Democratic agenda if, in fact, Republicans control Congress, would you offer them an olive branch? Or is that off the table? Is that not an option for you?
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals.
That's always how she turns the question. No exceptions for religiously convicted Christians in the medical field. You heard it from her own lips. This is her view. Dear evangelicals for Harris, please tell me how you're supporting this woman who wants to rip children from the womb and rip rights away from Christians. That's what she stands for. Listen to her when she speaks. That's Kamala's viewpoint. The question, of course, is, does the absence of abortion rights or the limitation of abortion... by the way, I hate the term abortion rights. It's abortion wrongs. And I also hate the term reproductive rights. It's not reproductive rights. There's nothing right about killing a child in the womb. It's reproductive wrongs. Let's claim the language back. Does the absence, and forgive this title, but does the absence of abortion rights lead to the death of women? Because that's what the left would have you believe. After all, after the abortion bans passed in states like Ohio and Texas, women have been dying. Don't you know? They're on the streets. They're on the street bleeding out all over the city of Dallas, all over the city of San Antonio, because Trump bad. That's what they would have you believe. So women are dying left, right, and center because of the lack of ability to rip the children out of their wombs. And this is the narrative. That's the narrative, and the mainstream news media just goes with it. And so we have to answer that question here on The Deep End. Well, this is Dr. Ingrid Scott. She is board-certified OBGYN in Texas, and she wrote a Twitter thread, and I'm going to read it to you. Quote, I am a board-certified OBGYN currently practicing in Texas. I have been practicing for over 30 years, and I have delivered over 5,000 babies. Allow me to shed some light on the harmful lies coming from the pro-abortion lobby. After Texas enacted its pro-life law, the quality of medical care I provide did not change, nor has the law prevented me from caring for my patients. This is true even in cases of emergencies around pregnancies. She says this. Since the Dobbs decision, I have cared for many women suffering from ruptured ectopic pregnancies. I have performed surgeries to treat incomplete miscarriages and failed in drug-induced abortions. I have intervened when a pregnancy complication threatened a mother's life, even when I anticipated that, sadly, the unborn child would not survive the action required to protect his mother. Under every pro-life law, including in Texas, physicians can intervene to save women's lives in pregnancy emergencies. In fact, according to a recent Texas Health and Human Services Commission report, physicians reported 116 abortions for medical emergencies and physical health between July 2022 and May 2024. That's after the law went into effect, by the way. The pro-abortion lobby is trying to scare women into thinking they can't be treated during a pregnancy emergency. The pro-abortion this is a Twitter handle, @ACOG, also refuses to provide any guidance or support for doctors who are confused about these laws. This combination is deadly, and we've unfortunately seen women harmed as a result. Their stories are devastating. These women are victims of a pro-abortion movement that cares more about promoting unlimited all-trimester abortion over their safety. I am proud to care for my patients, both moms and their babies. What we need now more than ever are facts, not fear-mongering, so that we can continue to serve our patients with the medical care they deserve. So that is one doctor's opinion. You say, well, it's just one doctor. It's a woman. Does that count? And when we talk about harming women with abortion, the only women that get harmed are the potential women who could have been born but were aborted. Really, let's think about that, because it's true. But that's only just one doctor. Well, I got another doctor. This is Dr. Christina Francis Steps, by the way. Dr. Christina Francis Steps. She is the CEO of the American Association of Pro-Life OBGYNs, and here she is sharing her facts about how abortion does not help women. Watch.
I just watched Vice President Harris's comments in Atlanta, Georgia about the tragic deaths of Amber Thurman and Candy Miller, two Georgia women who died after taking abortion drugs. I agree with the Vice President that their deaths were 100% preventable. However, their deaths were not the fault of Georgia's abortion law. No pro-life law in the country prevents OBGYNs like me from intervening when a woman is facing a potentially life-threatening complication of her pregnancy. They do not have to be knocking on death's door before we can intervene. In fact, I can speak from experience as I practice in Indiana, which has a very similar law. Madam Vice President, stop lying to my patients. Your lies are harming women and they're harming physicians.
So as with all things, there are people from the industry who say the opposite of what everyone is telling you in the media, right? You have to do your own research. You have to watch the deep end. You have to like and subscribe and follow this channel because the mainstream media is all aligned with the pro-abortion lobby. They're all aligned with the killing babies lobby. And there is something very demonic about all this. It's demonic. The devil hates children. You understand this? Because children, again, they are beautiful pictures of the image of God in our creation. They represent the Father. They represent the Son of God. They represent the image of God. And there is this picture in Revelation where there's a woman about to give birth, and some believe, the Catholics believe it's Mary. There are some commentators who believe it's the church. There are some commentators who believe it was Israel giving birth to the salvation of Israel, Jesus. And there's a picture. The woman's about to give birth, and she's got the crown on her head. And as she's about to give birth, the dragon is sitting there waiting to eat the child that comes out, but the angels carry her into the wilderness to be protected. This is a picture, friends, of the demonic nature toward children and childbirth and having babies. The demons of hell and Satan hate you having children. So the best way to tick off the devil, okay? Listen, it is not reading your Bible, as important as that is. It's not even going to church, as important as that is. It's having children. Having children really upsets the devil. So if you're young and you're married, get busy, make babies, do what you've been called to do. And this is the way I believe that the pro-life people win the argument, okay? Because abortion, as evil as it is not going away anytime soon. Going to be really interesting to see election night what happens with, I think it's referendum number 4 in Florida, because there's a vote, an amendment for the Constitution, I think, to allow abortion up to birth, with some very confusing language to confuse people into voting for it. It's going to be very interesting on election night what happens with that particular ballot question in Florida, because Florida has gone deep red, solidly in the Republican category. But if that law passes and abortion is allowed up to birth, then we are dealing with a serious heart issue in America around having children. And we're going to find ourselves in the very place that Europe is pretty soon, where we're not reproducing at the rate we need to maintain our values and the structure of our government and how we enjoy this country. I mean, all the things that we enjoy, all the rights and privileges that we enjoy are at threat when we do not reproduce children and we do not reproduce the mindset and value system that we all enjoy as American citizens. Okay, that's why there are some on the left who want to promote the idea of we need to enact mass amnesty for all the illegals that are now in this country because we just need more people. Well, we could get more people if we stopped killing them in the womb. I mean, it just pretty much makes sense. And we could raise those people with our value system and with appreciation for this country from birth. You see, you import people who break the laws to get into the country. Okay, there's nothing wrong with immigrants. This is a nation of immigrants. My grandparents were immigrants. My wife is an immigrant. She wasn't born in this country. I'm so glad she came into this country legally. There's nothing wrong with that. There is something wrong, though, when breaking the law to get in this country is validated, is substantiated by giving them amnesty and making them citizens, because then you have just rubber stamp approved breaking the laws of this country, thereby instilling in them a devaluation of the laws of this country, and who knows where that goes in the future. This is so important. Not the abortion deal with Kamala Harris and the left. They seriously want to trans the kids, and that is exactly what they're doing. They are transing the kids in crazy ways. Now, this past Friday, Megyn Kelly, who runs a very popular podcast on YouTube, went on with Bill Maher, the atheist left-wing commentator. And in a shocking moment, as she sat down for an interview with Bill Maher, the right-leaning Megyn Kelly, the left-leaning, hard left-leaning, if you will, Bill Maher, although he wouldn't be hard left anymore, he's more like center-left, and she's center-right. These two political talk show hosts had a moment of agreement about the transing of the kids. Again, transing of the kids. Bill Maher has no problem with the transing of the adults. If you're a grown adult and you want to cut off your genitals and go the other way, he says no problem. And even Megyn Kelly, I believe, agrees with that. I don't agree with that. I think it's wrong. I think it's unhealthy. I think you've got some serious mental problems. But that's my view. That's my biblical point of view. But they both found agreement and had to rebuke Bill Maher's left-leaning audience for not believing that, yes, they're transing the kids. This moment was incredible, and I want to show it to you. Watch.
Almost equally important, maybe as important, is what we're doing to our children with this trans insanity. I mean, this is almost my single issue. We are chopping off the healthy body parts of young children without 100%.
Did you hear the crowd? Oh, watch.
We are doing that.
Well, we are definitely doing that.
Without any inquisition.
That's what it is. So
into
I don't know what
happening.
the oohing is about.
I don't.
Even Bill Maher has to say to his audience, I don't know why you're oohing. Do you understand how incredibly important that moment is for television? You have an indoctrinated audience. That's the problem there. The indoctrinated audience in hard left LA saying that's just not happening. They're not transing the kids. Meanwhile, there's a hero that walks the streets named Billboard Chris. I don't know if you follow this guy. Incredible man. And he wears a billboard on his front and back about all the transgender madness. And he went on the streets in this viral moment to engage a college campus about the fact that children cannot consent to puberty blockers. And this is, again, more evidence as he runs into a detransitioner that they are transing the kids. Watch this moment go down.
Yeah, come on in. What's your name?
My name's Clementine.
Nice to meet you.
I've actually seen your stuff online, and I'm a huge fan. I was on puberty blockers. I started when I was 12, and I was on testosterone from 14 to 17, and I got top surgery at 17. Totally messed my life up. So I just want to say you're doing a good thing.
Wow.
I can't believe people disagree with you on this. As a former child transitioner, I'm just appalled that people have anything to question you about. So I salute you.
I'm so sorry you had to go through all that. I'm glad you are through it now. Thank you so much for speaking up. That's extremely valuable because a lot of people are afraid to.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we have a little conversation about
Of course,
it?
yeah.
Okay, come on in this way just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Just let's watch a little bit more for the facts of her story.
Hi.
So, your name again?
My name's Clementine.
Clementine. So Clementine went on puberty blockers at what age?
12.
And you detransitioned at?
I detransitioned earlier this year, actually, but I had been going off testosterone since about 17 because it gave me psychosis.
When did they put you on testosterone?
I was 13.
Wow. And when did you have a double mastectomy?
I had a double mastectomy at 14. I'm currently going through the process of getting reconstructive surgery, and it was harder to get that approved. I actually wasn't able to get it approved by my insurance.
Right.
But it was much harder to get surgery for that than it was to actually get the original top surgery procedure.
It was much harder. It is much harder to get her, reconstructive breasts than for her to get her breasts cut off when she was a teenager. The medical establishment is lying to you on a regular basis. There's a lot of money to be made by the doctors who trans the people, whether they be children or adults. But the younger you get them, the better off it is, because then you have a lot longer of a lifespan to charge that child with all the medical problems that they're going to experience from putting holes where they ain't or cutting off things where they should be. The body has a tendency to heal itself. Think about that. When you get a cut anywhere, what happens? The skin closes up. You don't have to work for that to happen. It just does happen. Now, we stitch to make sure that it's much more clean. I had a cut here on my eye. It's much more clean because I got stitches. But when you put a hole in your body anywhere, the skin is going to try to close it. So think about putting a hole down there where it doesn't belong. The skin's going to try to close it. And we've talked about this on this channel many, many times about the transgender people who struggle with excruciating pain in their private parts because the body is trying to heal itself. But this doesn't matter. No. Kamala has 6-year-olds showing up at her rally who are drag queens. Yeah, no, you heard that right. Drag queens showing up at the Kamala Rally in support of Kamala. And they're 6 years old. Watch this.
What are your pronouns?
She and they. I am 6 years old and I do drag.
Asa is a baby drag queen.
This is where all of my dresses go.
He performs at drag shows as
He started doing this 4, 5, now 6 years old. He is by far the youngest performer we've seen.
Who has their, gross pause. Who has their child start performing as a drag queen at 4 years old? child abusers do. Sickos do.
There's even adult performers that sometimes you can outperform. You fell in love with it. There's no turning back. Now we almost have one performance a month that Lulu gets to do. You want to practice?
I really like drag and they don't want to stop.
It's just about living in the moment and what's exciting for right now. And I think wherever that takes us is where we go.
Amazing confession. It's about living in the moment and right now. How many people live by that message? YOLO, carpe diem, live in the moment, own your own moment. Like, this is the mantra of the age, and this is to the extreme. That your 4-year-old is going to dance while dressed as a provocative woman in front of strangers for money. The devil really hates children. If he can't kill them in the womb, he will trans them when they're toddlers. That's what's happening in our culture. And our nation needs to wake up to the insanity. These are pagan practices from ancient times, sacrificing our children to Molech and transitioning them based on their feelings, overruling science with feelings. That is the age that we are living in. So, this is the Kamala Harris campaign, pro-abortion to the nth degree, denying Christians their rights to conscientiously object to such procedures, transing the 6-year-olds and celebrating them being at your rallies. And the question now is, how do you win elections when you are this extreme? How do you win elections when you're this extreme? Well, by playing the other guy is Hitler card, of course. Yes, you pull out the everyone I don't like is Hitler playbook, a child's guide to online political discussion. This is so in tune with the Democrat talking points for as long as I can remember, even before I was born. Fox News put up this little graphic. Republicans who have been labeled fascist or Hitler by the Democrats date all the way back to Mitt Romney, George W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, Gerald Ford, Richard Nixon, Barry Goldwater. That's like in the 1960s. This has been the game plan by the Democrats for as long as we can remember. So here's what they are saying. Trump is a fascist and he's coming to arrest you. That's what they want you to believe, even if they themselves don't believe it. Because here he is on the right, making a pilgrimage to Ohel, the gravesite of Rabbi Menachem Mendele Schneerson in Queens, New York, with Ben Shapiro, a Jewish commentator of his own right. After this moment, Trump participated in an event in Florida commemorating the Hamas attack on October 7th, wearing a black kippah. Trump prayed for the release of hostages being held by Hamas during that ceremony. But Trump is a Nazi. He is Hitler in the making. And so this past week, John Kelly, former chief of staff for Donald Trump when he was president, comes out and makes claims that Trump praised Hitler, thought he did some good things, and wanted generals like Hitler had generals. So this story, of course, the mainstream media just leapt into action and made sure that this story got into everybody's eyeballs. And then Kamala Harris decided to have a press conference outside of the vice president's residence to leapfrog from the news media outlets reporting on this story and decry Trump as a Nazi sympathizer, Hitler-loving fascist in waiting. Watch.
Learned that Donald Trump's former chief of staff, John Kelly, a retired 4-star general, confirmed that while Donald Trump was president, he said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had. Donald Trump said that because he does not want a military that is loyal to the United States Constitution. He wants a military that is loyal to him.
Now, gee, if only we could have some evidence that Trump wouldn't act like a fascist if he became president. If only there was some evidence. That's right, he was already president for 4 years and he didn't. So this John Kelly comes out with this bogus, it's bogus. This guy, John Kelly, was fired by Trump. Now, my question to you is, would you have a beef with your former boss if they fired you? Of course you would. John does. And the story is completely uncorroborated by anybody else. In fact, it's denied by others who were in the same group as Kelly during the same time in the Trump administration. Second, you need to remember that John Kelly, a Republican and a conservative, but he comes from the old neocon movement of the George W. Bush era. These are the people like Dick Cheney's daughter and Dick Cheney who loved invading countries. And Trump didn't want to play that game. He didn't want to play the warmongering game so that the weapons manufacturing companies in this country could make bank invading Iraq again. So Kamala decides to hold this press conference to sound like she's the rational one. with her, again, news media leaping to action to make sure that there was plenty of evidence that he is a Nazi, Hitler-sympathizing fascist ready to take dictatorial control over our country. And then there was a big Trump rally at Madison Square Garden this weekend in New York, and the media found the obvious tie to a Nazi rally from the 1930s because Trump. This is an amazing moment for MSNBC, and I say that with tongue-in-cheek because it's quite impossible for MSNBC to surprise me anymore. But this is how they portrayed the Trump rally at Madison Square Garden. Watch.
But that jamboree happening right now, you see it there on your screen, in that place is particularly chilling. Because in 1939, more than 20,000 supporters of a different fascist leader, Adolf Hitler, packed the garden for a so-called pro-America rally. A rally where speakers voiced anti-Semitic rhetoric from a stage draped with Nazi banners. When a Jewish protester rushed the stage, the Associated Press reported, quote, instantly, a dozen or more stormtroopers set upon him, knocking him down and beating him as he held his head in his arms. Most of his clothing was torn from his body. Later, he was booked for disorderly conduct. Now,
this is how they framed a political rally for Trump in Madison Square Garden. They went back in history and dug up some rando Nazi rally in Madison Square Garden. And look, it's kind of interesting because we have people who remember history, and JFK attended a Nazi rally, I guess, at Madison Square Garden in 1962. And Jimmy Carter at the Democratic National Convention did so as well in 1980. And beloved Bill Clinton, before he was raping interns in the Oval Office, attended the Democratic National Convention at Madison Square Garden. Does that make Bill Clinton a Nazi? No. Just as it does not make Donald Trump one for having a rally at Madison Square Garden. But this is just reaching. This is just clinging to any kind of news that can demonize the right because of the sacred sacrament of the political left, abortion. Again, do we have any evidence of Trump being, what would he be like as president? Well, we do have this clip from Joe Scarborough of MSNBC talking in 2019 with Trump as president, and now 2024, Trump is running. See if you can spot the difference.
That's what Donald Trump is doing. Of course, he's not a fascist or a dictator or an autocrat. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying he is one, my friends. I'm not saying he is one, my friends. Okay? Stir that Sanka and just relax. He's going to round up his political opponents, that he's going to use the army, he's going to use the National Guard to arrest, quote, enemies within. Donald Trump is a fascist.
My, how the times have changed for the political left. They are seeing the internal polling of the Kamala campaign, and they are seeing bad things. I don't know. It is getting ridiculous, right? He holds a rally at a certain place where it happened that there was one rando Nazi rally in the 1930s, and now he's a Nazi. It's getting to the point like this. You know who else drinks water? Hitler. I mean, that's the argument of the political left. Now, not everybody's buying it on the political left. For instance, here is Michael Rapaport. He's a comedian, and he is a Trump hater, or at least he was. And he's been slowly moving away from the political left. I mean, this guy went from rejoicing over Trump's indictments to now considering voting for him. I actually think he's going to vote for him. But here he is talking about the Nazi rhetoric. It's got to stop. Watch.
Donald Trump, pig Donald Trump, call him whatever you want. I've given you gem after gem for years. But stop with the Hitler shit. Stop with the Hitler shit. Do not refer to Hitler and the Holocaust, the actual greatest slaughter and actual genocide of the Jewish people ever, for attention and political gain. Stop it. That Nazi rally that took place in Madison Square Garden in 1939 was just that, an actual true blue Nazi rally. So are you saying that anyone and everyone who shows up at Madison Square Garden for this upcoming Trump rally is a Nazi? That's a Nazi rally? Get the out of here. What kind of rallies are happening on the college campuses in New York City, in Union Square, where they're waving Hamas flags and kissing Yahya Sinwar photos? What kind of rallies are that? Do not mention the Holocaust, Hitler, to score political points. When you ignore the greatest slaughter of Jews since the actual Holocaust, which happened on October 7th.
Yeah, good one, Michael Rapaport. Some people are paying attention to facts and history, while others are just choosing to ignore them. It is very insulting to Jewish people to suggest that Donald Trump is Hitler, because even if his presidency was, I don't know, economically detrimental to Jews, let's say it's not going to be, but let's just say it was. Comparing that to Hitler's actions toward the Jews is insulting to the intelligence of Jewish people. They're not going to buy that. They shouldn't buy that. It's extreme rhetoric. It's what you do when you're panicking in an election. It's what you do when you're losing. You reach back for the old playbook. The opponent's a Nazi. Boom. Let's see how many people will buy it because they don't actually get facts. They just follow their feelings. That's where we are at this point in the race. Now, Trump, not a Nazi, actually supports the Jews, has a Jewish daughter converted to Judaism, Jewish son-in-law, who he gave high-ranking power to in his first term as president, Jared Kushner. Trump moved the embassy, the American embassy, from Tel Aviv, a secular city in Israel, to the sacred holy city of Jerusalem in 2017. I was in Jerusalem 2 weeks after that announcement was made, and the Jews that I was with celebrated like you wouldn't believe. They loved this guy for how he stood for Israel. But he's a Nazi. He's a Hitler. But meanwhile, at the Democratic National Convention this past August, this moment went down where Jewish people had to be ushered into safe rooms because of pro-Hamas protesters at the convention. Gotta love the masks, by the way. The COVID masks in 2024 as they yell at Jews at the Democrat National Convention. Tell me where the Jew hatred is. Tell me where the Jew hatred is. Here's NBC reporting. DNC protest ends with arrest after demonstrators refuse to disperse. Back in Chicago, August, the Democratic National Convention. Protests on the second night of the Democratic National Convention ended in arrest after pro-Palestinian group led several hundred demonstrators on an improvised path through the streets of downtown Chicago after police tried to block them. The demonstration began in front of the Israeli Consulate in downtown Chicago just after 7 p.m. local time with protesters chanting pro-Palestinian slogans. The consulate itself was barricaded and heavily protected by police on bicycles. Where did they have to protect the Israeli Consulate? At the Republican National Convention or the Democrat National Convention? The Democrat National Convention. Oh, and by the way, Vice President Harris's running mate is Tim Walz and is not Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, who would have been the better choice, by the way. A far more gifted politician, a great speaker, and probably a middle-of-the-road moderate Democrat who could have won a lot of independent voters. But she did not pick him. Why? Because he just happened to be Jewish, unfortunately. But Trump is Hitler. I can't pick my vice presidential candidate because he's Jewish, but my opponent is Hitler. You have to believe in fairy tales to fall for this news cycle. Meanwhile, actual Holocaust survivors, guess what? They support Trump, and they think it's insulting to compare him to Hitler. Just watch this ad.
My name is Jerry Wartsky. I'm 94 years old and survivor of Auschwitz and the Death Marches. Adolf Hitler invaded Poland when I was 9 years old. He murdered my parents and most of our family. I know more about Hitler than Kamala will ever know in 1,000 lifetimes. For her to accuse President Trump of being like Hitler is the worst thing I've ever heard in my 75 years living in the United States. I know President Trump, and he would never say this, and Kamala Harris knows this. She owes my parents and everybody else who was murdered by Hitler an apology for repeating this lie.
Why should the Jewish people support President Trump?
Because he's a mensch. I believe that President Trump is definitely going to be good for Israel, because in everything that he's done up to now, was in favor. He never double-crossed anyone, and he never showed any weakness. Watching President Trump pray for the hostages at the Ohel and spend time with him so meaningful. He has always stood with the Jewish people and the state of Israel.
Actual Holocaust survivor supporting President Trump, the Nazi, which in my opinion makes Donald Trump the worst Nazi ever. I mean, if he is a Nazi, he's the worst ever. This is the Trump is a fascist and is coming to arrest you playbook that the Democrats have gone back to because they don't have policies that people are liking. I guess they have looked at the last 3.5 years of our country and they say, not a fan, need a different direction. This administration imposed COVID vaccine mandates using OSHA to force you to take a jab that was experimental at best. This is a group of people that has demonized pro-life protesters, that has shut down parents who are concerned about the books that their children are being assigned to be read at in public school systems, books with pornographic homosexual imagery. Parents don't want that in their child's libraries. Okay? This is the administration, the Biden-Harris administration, that has repeatedly just shoved Christians and Christian convictions to the margins because they just don't fit with the progressive narrative that they are trying to impose on the country. This is fear-mongering at its best, and it just doesn't get old by the political left. Now, at the Madison Square Garden Rally, one of the speakers got up and said something about Puerto Rico, and we need to discuss this because, again, they got to reach back for this playbook to convince you that everybody on the right is bigoted and hateful and xenophobic. Watch this.
A lot going on. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay. All right. Okay.
All right. So maybe an off-color joke, right? Or is it off-color? It had the talking heads at MSNBC literally exploding in their brains. Here's Mia Krasinski, the wife of Joe Scarborough, responding.
I think a lot of people are seeing that rally at Madison Square Garden, seeing all those people. Doesn't mean he's going to win the race. But my point is it's discouraging that so many people would gather and rally to hate speech in America. That it's discouraging and it hurts that people who have family in Puerto Rico, who are Puerto Rican Americans, who are American citizens, are hearing hate like that. It's discouraging.
So if only we could get some viewpoints from actual Puerto Ricans. And guess what? We do. Here's some outside the rally after that Puerto Rican joke.
Live from the garden.
The rally was great.
Puerto
Trump
Ricans
is the
for
best.
Trump 2024.
Yo, now that I got my fellow Puerto Ricans, obviously what happened there tonight, everybody's talking
Beautiful,
about it.
epic.
But the Puerto Rican joke, the garbage island stuff, do you guys even give a f*** about that?
I
don't. No, I don't.
I don't even pay a mind. I don't even pay attention to that.
Puerto Ricans for Trump. Lock in. Stay locked.
Okay, so there's that. And then there's this other fellow Puerto Rican responding to Trump's rally.
I've already had a few people tag me in the videos of the comedian today at the Trump rally insulting Puerto Rico, or what they felt like was an insult. As a Puerto Rican American myself, my dad grew up in Puerto Rico. I was not insulted by this in the very least. Number one, this guy is a comedian. Number two, the clip that they don't show you from right before that is him joking with Latino Americans about a bunch of stuff in our culture. And if you know anything about a Latino American or Hispanic American, we are our worst critics. We harass and make fun of each other. Or if you gave two shits about Puerto Rico or learned anything that's going on there, you would know that this guy's not talking about Puerto Rican people. He's talking about the island of Puerto Rico, which has a massive pollution problem. Tons of trash washes up on this beach every single day, and it looks like a landfill. And there's been a huge problem there since the last hurricane. You know, the one that wiped out people's houses that they did nothing to help with? What a cheap shot they're trying to make while Kamala Harris is at African-American church in Pennsylvania with a whole new accent she picked up today.
And more on that in the extra content. And we are going to get to the extra content right now. But we've got some really good news to end the free content with before we go. So let's talk about that.
Really good. That's really good news.
It's good.
Yeah, really good news. Turns out the witches are getting frustrated. This is just a funny piece of news. And really good news from CBN and other outlets reporting this. Witches report their spells against Trump aren't working. Quote, he has a shield, end quote. So from dabblers to hardcore practitioners, witchcraft has been on the rise in the U.S. in recent years. It's become so trendy that there's an entire TikTok hashtag dedicated to witch talk, and it's got billions of views. The occult has gained popularity in the political realm as well, once again on display during this election season. With the presidential election right around the corner, witches are trying to cast spells against Donald Trump, but this time around, they're reportedly frustrated that their spells aren't working. The Toronto Star reports on one example in which a group of roughly 100 witches has been gathering by Zoom to attack Trump in the spirit realm. Quote, armed with orange candles, tarot cards, and not so flattering photo of the former president, they cast a spell to block his return to the White House. The final words of the synchronized ritual, quote, you're fired, end quote, echo as Trump's image burns to the ground, the Star reports. The group is led by a woman with 25,000 subscribers on her mailing list, and she has invited all of them to join her in hexing Trump before the election. But other news outlets are reporting that some witches are publicly bemoaning the failures of their spells against Trump. So that's kind of interesting. And speaking of joining lists, why don't you join my list and subscribe? There we go. Subscribe to the Deep End podcast here on this channel. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. The witches aren't having their day, aren't having their way with Trump. What do you think about it? Let me know in the comments. Is God protecting Trump? I mean, my word, he survived 2 assassination attempts. A bullet came within 3/4 of an inch of taking his life about 90 days ago. Good thing the Democrats have tamped down the rhetoric ever since that. That didn't last long. And the witches are frustrated. I also would suggest that I do agree that prayers are helping former President Trump. Should he be reelected, it seems that has been part of the process by which he does get reelected. That's just my personal point of view as a pastor. I think that the progressive left is so bent on so many destructive, unbiblical viewpoints, it is impossible for me to recommend anyone consider the other options or that as an option to vote for. I mean, I've never been this demonstrative about my political viewpoints until now, but it is getting to that point. And you need to have the facts, you need to know them so that you can make an informed decision that is based on biblical priorities. And back to the story on the witches, it just, I hope, maybe inspires you in your own life to recognize that spiritual warfare is real, that there are people out there who believe in demonic powers, and there are demonic powers. In fact, it should surprise no one who reads the Bible that the end times are going to be marked with miraculous supernatural signs by who? The Antichrist, the dictator beast, and his prophetic, partner there. That they're going to perform false signs and false miracles. That's going to fill the end times. The tribulation is going to be filled with miraculous events. God's going to be destroying this world, decreating this world piece by piece, and the demonic powers are going to embolden the world leader to perform false signs, false miracles, and he will deceive the nations. So there's a real spiritual battle, and hopefully you take a lesson here from the witches being frustrated about not being able to curse Trump, and you protect your family by praying, seeking God, lifting up Jesus in your home, casting out demon spirits in Jesus' name. You have the authority, you have the power in Jesus' name. I wouldn't say, I rebuke you, Satan. I would say, the Lord rebuke you, Satan. That's from the book of Jude. The Lord rebuke you, Satan. That's what I say. And you can't touch me because I belong to the kingdom of heaven. Amen. Speaking of the kingdom of heaven, my book, Ending Emptiness, is out now, and you can order your copy at endingemptiness.com. That's the free content, guys. We're going to pick up some more stuff on the trans madness. You are not going to want to miss it. I mean, serious abdication of duty in the medical establishment coming up now on the extra content. Subscribe to the Dependables membership plans for as little as $10 a month. You can get that extra content over at patreon.com/TimHatchLive. If you want to show us some extra love and get some of my books, either digitally or in hardback or soft copy, you can get that for $30 a month. And then Legacy gets all kinds of gifts and swag from me as a token of my appreciation to you. When you support us, we support Project Rescue and the American Bible Society. I haven't said that in a while, but we do. And thank you for being here tonight. And now I'm going to head over to the extra content with the Patreons. God bless you.